welcome to another episode of Gov Tech Today, where we aim to bridge .com and .gov. I'm Jen Saha, your host. Super excited. I have not a repeat guest, a repeat in title. We have California's state CIO and the director of the California Department of Technology, Chris Given, joining us today. Welcome.
It's a pleasure to be here.
So you're new in the position. How long have you been working there so far?
I believe this is week 10 for me.
Week 10. So everything is your fault automatically. Yes. How come you haven't solved all of our problems?
I mean, obviously, I know all the things at this point.
All the things,
so,
yes.
Yeah,
awesome. Good. Awesome. Well, great. We'll be able to really dive into it today. I'm super excited about this. So give us a little bit of your background. Where did you come from? You are a relatively new face in Sacramento, which I love to see in these types of positions. So welcome to Sacramento. Tell us where you came from and what you've been working on.
I mean, I have never lived further west than Chicago. So I am new to Sacramento. I'm new to California. I'm new to the West Coast. This is all new experiences to me. I've spent a lot of my career at the federal level. I think that's where I'm most known, but 10 different federal agencies. I bounced around a lot via something called the U.S. Digital Service, which was a startup out of the White House that afforded me lots of opportunities to drop in and work on different problems. I've also worked with a few states. So I worked with Illinois and Connecticut, and actually my first stop in government was the District of Columbia. But now I'm out in California. I enjoy, moving between the federal government and the state government, different scales, different proximity to the people that you serve. California, of course, is kind of more operating on a nation-state scale, but it's a lot of fun.
So tell me what attracted you to California besides our fabulous dry heat and weather. You were, before your current role, you were over at GovOps agency. What was getting that call like? And, what was the thought in your head of like, yeah, I'm going to do this?
I mean, I think I understood just how much opportunity the Department of Technology has ahead of it. I spent 6 months at GovOps, and that was a wonderful introduction to the state. It was a wonderful introduction to getting to know the other agency information officers, many of the folks at CDT who I now work with, and getting a sense of some of both the challenges as well as those opportunities. So it was a wonderful introduction. Still being thrown into the director seat is a whole new experience, lots of new challenges coming with that role.
Yeah, definitely. And I don't think people realize, so like when you say you're an AIO, an AIO is like a CIO at the agency,
yes.
And you have, 8 to 12 departments that all roll up to you. Each of those departments has a CIO. We're a federated model here. Everyone has control over their own stuff. So yeah, I mean, you really, in your short time in California, had a very good taste for like the different levels of our government here.
Yeah, and even within GovOps, I mean, I think some AIOs have much more of a centralized control structure. If you look at someone like Marcy Cabote at CalSta, right. She is very clearly centralizing a lot of the operations within CalSta and has a lot of direct relationships. Within GovOps, we are such a grab bag of an agency. And so we have the FTBs of the world. I mean, what am I going to tell someone like Nadine, the CIO of FTB? She's got that well in hand. We have small departments like the Victims Compensation Board. And so you really got to see the full spectrum of department experiences because, when it comes to how CDT interacts with departments, it looks very different if you're interacting with an FTB versus a VCB. And one of, the things that I've been trying to bring to how we approach this challenge is recognize that we need to meet departments where they are. Everyone's coming with different levels of maturity, different staffing levels.
Yep.
How do we offer services that are the right fit for different departments?
Or like lay off of them too. Like when you are an FTB and you're really competent and you have great staff and you have successful projects and you're on the technology side killing it.
Yep.
Like, let's let them cook, right? Like we've got bigger fish to fry and these other issues that are happening over here that really could use more of our help.
100%. Or what can we learn from them? I mean, I think we're learning a lot from FTB and their experience budgeting the EDR2 project.
Yep.
How can we make that something that's more available to more folks across the state?
Which finished early.
I did. I was just at the celebration yesterday.
I know.
It's a wonderful team. I mean, one thing that I really appreciate about FTB is every time I jump on a call with them, they bring both the IT folks and the business folks. And often I can't tell who's who.
Yeah.
Their IT team really understands the mission deeply. and their business side and all the way up to Selvi, they really understand how important technology is to their ability to run their business.
They're bilingual. That's what we call it.
Yes.
And then they also do a rotation among like what they're covering and what they're learning. So one day they're managing the infrastructure over at FTB. And then, a year later, they're on the software side and on the application side. And I'm like, that's so smart because you really get a huge comprehensive picture of what this operation really works on.
100%. Yeah.
It's great. I love them. All right. Kudos to FTB. Kudos to everyone that worked on that project. It was a huge success. So you get to CDT. You're the state CIO now of the largest state in the nation. What are the first priorities that immediately stood out to you? Like the three things. We're at the end of an administration here.
Yep.
So we're on sort of a limited clock. We're on sort of a counting down timer here. What are like, okay, I'm coming in here. I have to do three things. What are those three things that you're focused on?
I mean, we are at the end of administration. It does not feel like we're at the end of an administration. This is an administration that is definitely running through the tape, is the phrase. So there's still a lot of things that are going to be happening in this last year. Obviously, some of the key pieces were for procurement for us. So we have the first sites contract, but we're going to be doing more of this. I think this is a tremendous opportunity. I'd love to talk more about.
Yes, we'll dive into that.
Okay.
So we'll put a pin in it.
I think the big piece to appreciate about where CDT is right now is our budget is going to be evolving. I think CDT of the past has been in a position where there have been some cash cows in the data center, services that we could count on people to use year in, year out. And those provided a lot of support for all of the things that we needed to get accomplished as a state.
Yep.
Many departments, many of our largest customers are doing exactly the right thing. They're modernizing their services. They're finding ways to deliver those services that do not involve our data center services. There will always be a role for our data center, but how our departments are approaching that is changing, and we need to change with it. And so our budget needs to change. We need to be very conscientious, and I think you see this in the most recent rates package that we introduced. How do we shift some of the things out of overhead that could have been absorbed previously into broad-based fees and things that are more equitably distributed? But also, as a department, what are the things we want to be in the business of doing 5 years from now? What are the services that the state will continue to need? What are the things that we can invest in and grow, as well as responsibly transition the services that are no longer going to be cost sustainable as our largest customers leave? How do we help the departments that are left behind on those services so that they're not the ones footing the bill?
Yeah. And so a little plug for the vendor community, because I work with them day in and day out. They can help. They can help with this, right? If it isn't sustainable for CDT to provide these services, turn to your vendor community because they always can. They'll find a way. And they can probably, in most cases, depending on the topics and the expertise needed, they can do it in a sustainable way that maybe is going to be cheaper than if CDT was doing it and bumping rates every year. The other thing I would say is, and we've heard this, CDT is going to be a broker of services. When I say that, how does that land with you?
This is my first introduction to the phrase.
Really? Okay.
I think that's right. I mean, I think as I look at what we're trying to do with sites, I think we're looking at what is the leverage that comes with the purchasing power of the state of California, and looking at our biggest opportunities. What are the ways that we can do pre-negotiation to make it easier for our customers to access the services they need?
Yep.
And ultimately for the state to save money. And so, I think a lot of focus has been, obviously, this initial invitation to negotiate was focused on AI. And there's more announcements to come on that front.
Good.
But we want to broaden this vehicle beyond simply AI. And so we're looking at what are some of the biggest services that the state consumes and looking at ways for us to apply the state's purchasing power to A, save some money, but B, make it easier for departments to access these services and spend less time negotiating one-off.
So this is, I'm going to dumb it down a little bit.
Oh, please.
So this is
translation help.
If 80 plus departments are buying the same piece of software, why do we have 80 plus contracts with the same software company? Why don't we have one managed through CDT, negotiated, get better rates, frankly, because you're buying for 80 departments, And then just departments can pay CDT or pay the vendor directly, and CDT takes a management fee in the middle, right?
Exactly. And
Okay.
I mean, not only are we saving money because we can get a lower rate for the state, but we're also saving a lot of time because each of those 80 departments would have had to go to the vendor and say, okay, here's your SLP rate. Now we
Yep.
need to negotiate down from that. It takes a lot of the vendor's time. It takes a lot of the department's time. And so
Yeah.
how can we streamline that and make it easier for everyone to access these services?
You know, I've heard some pushback because people are like, no, the vendor hates that because they make their living selling to 80 departments and they have a sales team of a dozen people because they have to manage 80 clients. And I'm like, I don't really think that's true, honestly. Like, I've worked with a fair number of them. And when they hear the idea of like an enterprise contract, one rate, one negotiation, sometimes painful negotiation, they jump at that opportunity.
100%. I mean, I am aware of some sales teams with some perverse incentives. I think if you are in a position to be managing those incentives, there's very clearly a win-win here. And so it's important for us all to be focused on this narrative.
So let's talk about sites. I say sites. The government loves a great acronym. What does sites even stand for?
Statewide IT Shared Services. I don't know where the E is, but the E is lowercase.
Shared
Yeah,
services.
there are
something.
E's
Okay.
in there. Yeah. But the basic.
It sounds better than sits. So yeah, I'm gonna.
That sounds
let's
like a
keep
disease.
The E. Let's
Yeah.
keep the E. I like it. Okay. So this is gonna be. Someone asked me the other day, how is this different than like SLP?
Well, with SLP, I think, to be clear, sites is not going to be the answer for everything.
Right.
So when we look at things that are consumed by tons of departments where we can see statewide savings, I think we're going to be prioritizing how do we move those to an arrangement where we have pre-negotiated the price.
Yep.
Whereas SLP, we are negotiating down off the MSRP, but it's expected that every department is going to negotiate further based on their own use case.
Yep.
And so we're doing a lot of duplicative work there. When it comes to our biggest contracts, let's have CDT help with that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so the first contract listed on sites, drumroll, Claude. Anthropic with Claude offering to departments half the price of what you would pay if you were just logging on and buying it for yourself. So congrats, that's awesome.
It's fantastic. I know a lot of departments are already using Claude and are excited at the possibility of a price cut.
It also accomplishes a number of the governor's other initiatives, all focused around AI and using AI to improve service delivery. So kudos, logical first step. What is next for sites?
Well, so I will say, I think there are more AI contracts to come. We did an invitation to negotiate and went out to a number of kind of productivity-focused AI tools. I think we're going to be hearing more about those soon.
Is it going to be things that aren't on contract already, or are you guys looking at some things that are maybe already out there and saying we're going to consolidate that and put it on sites?
We were not restricted to things that are already out there. So this was very intended to be broad, kind of greenfield, recognizing that AI is an emerging use case.
Good.
This is going to be very different than how we approach the rest of the things on sites. For those, I won't name any specific companies, but look at the top 10 software providers to government. I think you're going to have a top 10 priority list for CDT. What are the ways that we can take the services that are already being consumed and focus on getting savings on those? So
I have a couple of my clients that I'm going to suggest hop on sites just because, even just from a management perspective alone, like it saves everyone the headache of trying to sell. That's one of the biggest barriers. People are like, great, I'm on SLP. When do the POs come? And it's like, no, you have to sell to like 150 individual departments within the state.
Well, and sometimes CDT is doing that procurement. We're not only saving departments time, we're saving our own time.
Right.
Because we've been able to negotiate once. That's going to be a big relief to my procurement team.
Yep. Yeah. No, I mean, I love it. I absolutely love it. Some other things that are going on in the AI space, because it is like the sexy topic of the day, the year, the decade. Poppy.
Yes.
Tell me a little about Poppy.
I mean, I think Poppy is a great example of the sort of service that CDT can grow into. Recognizing that a lot of departments are dipping their toes in the water of AI, we wanted to create a product that was a good fit to those use cases. As we look at the roadmap, we're exploring features like one's called Poppy Learns, very focused on how do we provide a safe environment for departments to experiment with AI and to find promising use cases. That came down to, we had to price that very creatively because we wanted to make this something that could be rolled out very broadly by a department, recognizing that some people are going to get heavy use out of it and other people are going to be very skeptical.
Yep.
We wanted Poppy to be accessible to that full gamut. And for some use cases, we have power users on Poppy. We have a Dr. Lucy at Waterboards. I cannot remember her last name. I just call her Dr. Lucy. She has done just phenomenal work integrating Poppy into her data pipeline. She's an environmental scientist. She's done fantastic work. And Poppy has been a real kind of power up for her. Not everyone is going to be using Poppy in the same way as Dr. Lucy.
We don't have all Dr. Lucy's. Is there the ability, though, to find those Dr. Lucy's, like open source what they're working on?
Yes.
Or even like train the trainer kind of thing. Like, hey, Dr. Lucy, can you go to these other departments and show them how to best use Poppy because you are a power user?
100%. I think we are very interested in kind of creating these community of practices. Even within a department, there is an ability for your power users to enable the rest of your workforce. So Poppy works out of the box well for government use cases, but it works really well if you start uploading some key resources that provide sources of truth that you might want to query. So instead of standing up your own custom AI tool, you're just loading some material into Poppy and you have out of the box a tool that's ready to go for your workforce. Level that with, hey, here are some prompts that I'm using to get my job done. Here are some ways that I'm incorporating Poppy into my workforce. You can have a couple of power users in your department kind of leading the way for the rest of your workforce. And so we're very excited at the prospect of this being part of the on-ramp for the state to using AI tooling.
Awesome. One more thing I will throw out there, because California does get kudos for responsible AI with guardrails. We've done a lot. Your department has done a lot with putting those, shall I say, hurdles, and necessary hurdles for sure, in place to ensure that when we're adopting AI, we're doing it and protecting privacy and protecting the state's data. So we do avoid those, front page of the Times kind of news stories that get us all into trouble. So tell me a little bit about that and sort of where it's going. And I will say, kudos. It has gotten a lot easier. There was a point of time previous to you working there, and I actually gave your predecessor a hard time about it too, where AI was a bad word when it came to contracting with the state. Because it was no, don't say AI. It puts it in this whole other review process. You have all these other forms. A board has to hear it. We have to get CDT involved to assess it. And it was oh my gosh, just take the AI out of it. We don't want to deal with that. And that's a barrier. And I hate that. It has gotten way better. So kudos on that. Kudos on the whole team for bringing it around so that we're still being safe, but we are working within these guardrails.
Yep. I mean, one thing that we kind of slipped on the radar as we introduced the first sites contract is that we're making some updates to this process that you're describing. It goes by the arcane name 5305F. And it's a risk assessment. And doing a risk assessment is a very important step as you contemplate rolling out AI. You want to think about how people are going to be using it, whether there are dangers there, and how you're going to protect against those dangers.
Yep.
And so we wanted to make, I think the state has learned a lot since our first stab at that. As part of the site's announcement, one piece that we did is say, okay, we're categorizing risk as low, medium, and high. Mm-hmm. For low risk, we said, okay, you need to do the risk assessment, but that's your business. You hold on to that risk assessment. Eventually, you could be audited for it. You do actually need to have that risk assessment, but that's your business. Just hold on to it. You don't even need to send that to me. For medium risk use cases, we do want to see those. We do want to understand what's out there, but we don't need to have a long, extended conversation about it. A lot of these medium risk use cases are things that we well understand. We're going to focus our attention on those high risk use cases. Those are the ones that we actually want to have a conversation about, where we think that our department can actually add some value, if not for you, the department coming and procuring this tool, for the state as we learn more about these use cases. So finding ways to approach each level of risk appropriately, that's something that has rolled out with the introduction of the sites contract. I will also tease that there are some additional updates to the 5305F form coming that will make it even easier and will particularly focus attention on the areas where I think there's the most need to actually do some documentation, as opposed to some of the things that were adding less value, let's just say.
Yeah. No, I mean, I love that. I'm all for updates. I think one of the hard parts is the communication that follows these updates. and you probably notice this even in your agency standpoint, and it's not just a CDT problem. This is like a statewide, great, we rolled out this policy. We told people in like a budget memo or a technology letter that frankly, like only the people that got it read, if it didn't get filtered into like a spam or something. And so it's funny, a lot of the vendors see themselves, and I try to empower them also to be like a conveyor of these communications, a teacher. So a lot of times departments are like, yeah, that's great, I want to buy it. How do I do that?
Yep.
And I'm like, well, you have this department called DGS. Like, go look at them. There's a whole state contracting manual. There's a state technology like, here's how you do it. But having the vendor community help in that communication, sort of feedback, analysis through things to be like, yes, here are the contract vehicles that it's on. You can buy this on sites. You can buy this on SLP. This one is on CMAS, and here's the forms for that. This form is required because this is a medium risk, and here's a process for that. I love it when people are like, we put a memo out. And I'm like, oh, I love you, but like no one reads those. So like, let's
Turns
talk
out there's
about
a lot of email traffic.
Yeah, let's talk about better ways to communicate these things. Like CDT has a monthly meeting of the CIOs and the AIOs. And I really hope you'll be continuing those because they're super valuable for you guys and for all those people out there. But it needs to get to the businesses too, right?
Yes.
To your point earlier, FTB is so good because like their business people and their technology people are in lockstep. And so a lot of what I see and what people in the industry that do it right, do well, is like having them be a partner in that communication and that training, frankly, on the state systems.
100%. I agree it's needed, particularly as we look at a topic like cybersecurity in the AI era. A lot of our focus has been on how do we broaden the messaging out from just the CISO community, that's Chief Information Security Officers. Obviously, those folks understand what they're up against quite well. How do we broaden that out to all of IT? I think there are a lot of folks who need to appreciate the impacts that this is going to have for their work. But also, how do we broaden that out to the business leaders who are going to need to understand the operational impacts, who are going to need to create space for the work that needs to happen? And so we're very focused on how do we tell the story of what we're up against to a broad audience, because we can't just be...
God, cybersecurity is terrifying, right? Because like it's everyone. It's like that random analyst that clicks on a phishing email and shuts down an entire department's backup memory and storage. Like that happens.
And those phishing emails are going to be generated they're going to be very personalized. They're going to be very deceptive.
It's super tricky now.
Yes. Absolutely. Yep.
I mean, when I say that happens, that literally happens. That happened a year ago and almost, crippled a very important state department that we were all behind the scenes here for and supporting to get back on their feet very quickly. But yes, with cybersecurity, it's terrifying.
Yes.
And so talk a little bit, since you brought it up, about cybersecurity. We've got some changes happening over there in the leadership team, which could be awesome. It's a weird time right now, right? Let's talk about like your executive team in general. Tons of transition happening right now. And I know it feels like this maybe isn't the end of the administration, because frankly, for our governor, it's probably not, because he probably has higher aspirations to be determined. But you've had some vacancies. The end of an administration is a natural time for people to leave their jobs and find new jobs. We've had the return to office mandate, which is growing pains for a lot of people. Now we're back in the office 4 days a week, when before we were able to telecommute here and there. CDT, I know, has been a little tighter on that, so it isn't as much of a change for people, but still a big shift.
It's still a big shift.
So you're seeing a lot of people leave. What are the challenges that you face? Like, how do you sort of lead in a state where you have quite a few vacancies in some really key positions?
I mean, folks keep telling me that every vacancy is an opportunity. I'll believe them when we're staffed up.
Yep.
I think this does, you were alluding to this. I will say the name of Vitaly Panich, who has been our state CISO, has done a phenomenal job. For context, the average tenure of a state CISO is 18 months. Vitaly has been in seat for 7 years. I could learn a lot from Vitaly's approach to stress management.
Right.
And so Vitaly is looking to transition out. For a lot of folks, this is just a natural time.
Yep.
Fortunately, I think, Vitaly leaves behind a really great team. And, at a high level, there are some key vacancies. I hope we'll be able to share some exciting news there soon. But by and large, the team is ever focused. And, when you have a leader like Vitaly, he's really setting that team up for success. So we're putting the finishing touches on CalSecure 2.0, which is the update to the state's cybersecurity strategy. It really reflects a leveling up of, where we were versus when we did the original CalSecure, but it also reflects new challenges. It reflects these cybersecurity and AI era challenges that I was just speaking about. And so, having that be a capstone for Vitaly is fantastic, but his team has been a very big part of that and are very much looking forward to working with departments to implement it, because that's going to be the challenge of the next administration. Yep.
Well, and then even on the contracting side of cybersecurity, it doesn't get talked about enough, and maybe that's because it's in active procurement right now, but CalNet is expanding previously CalNet had a very narrow definition of products, services that could qualify to be offered on CalNet. And that was very focused on networking. And I love that we're taking a little bit more of a broad approach to CalNet now. And there are going to be managed security offerings on CalNet. So back to CDT being the broker of services, This is going to be a huge one. CalNet's an incredible contract vehicle. People love using it. It's very easy. It's very low maintenance, easy to use. So kudos for your role, your 10-week in role, on getting that out the door. I know this has been in the works for a very long time, but I think the industry, state departments and agencies are all very excited about that. It's going to be a huge win for the state.
Well, and for us, it comes down to meeting departments where they are. So, when something's working, when a department has needs, well, let's find a way to meet them. And so that's been really gratifying to see. I think we're going to hopefully see more of that.
All right, so I'll give you a little rapid fire here. I work mostly with vendors. What are vendors doing that just irks you, that's a waste of government's time?
Ooh, a waste of government's time.
Trust me, they do it. It exists.
I know, but I feel like we do far worse to them.
Well, that's fine. You all do. Like, it's true. I'll give you an example. A lot of my clients that pay me are on net 90, meaning that I don't get paid for 90 days after I've invoiced them. These are like Fortune 100 companies who shall not be named. But I'm like, you guys whine that the state is slow. Like, this is archaic. And so, look, those vendors are no better. So what do they do that you're like, gosh, this is a waste of my time? Like, what are we doing here?
I might have to plead ignorance on this one.
Okay.
I don't know that I've lived through enough experience of this to really have an informed litany of complaints. But I will say, I think there's going to be a need for us to be more flexible in how we approach solutions. I think, given budget constraints, I expect that we'll be moving away from some of the big bang modernizations of the past and looking for what are ways that we can deliver value iteratively. And so that's going to require both the government to position the contracts that we're letting in a new way, but it's also going to require some willingness from the vendor community to be innovative and engage in new approaches that might be less well understood, less, okay, I understand I have 5 years of business on this contract, and more, I'm going to pitch on this 1-year project. I'm going to add a lot of value, and I hope this is going to continue and be something that the department continues to invest in, as opposed to something that we declare it done and wait 10 years and then suddenly we have to modernize it again.
I love the idea, and it's not a new one, right? Like, we've been waterfall is dead for a very long time now.
Waterfall is dead, long live waterfall.
And yet, right, and then long live waterfall. And yet, I keep seeing these big bang RFOs come out, and it's gone through this project life cycle analysis, and we have to do it, and it will be 10 years. So, like, how do we make that shift as a government?
It's going to be difficult. You could do a fascinating psychology study of how we end up in this position, but there's no easy answer.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of it does come down to how we budget for these projects. When you have long cycle times to get a project approved, that increases the incentives on the department to make everything a kitchen sink project.
Yep.
When you know that a department's going to struggle to approach, real phases, the Department of Finance will look at that and go, well, if we fund the first phase of a thing, clearly we're committing to the next 10 years of whatever. So we want to know what you're going to do for the next 10 years before we approve it, which increases cycle times, which increases all sorts of circles of how we break that cycle. I do not know, but it is an important conversation for all of us to be having, the vendor community, finance, the administration, the Department of Technology, departments.
Totally.
There's not going to be a silver bullet, but we can't keep kicking the can on it and just saying, well, we're going to, put some lipstick on this pig and call it Agile.
I mean, there's so many things, the ridiculous requirements. You put out 1,000 requirements that look exactly like the archaic system you already have. Like, how do you expect that you're going to get something new to let's do deliverable-based contracting instead of time and materials, because time and materials is just penalizing people for being efficient and finishing early and working hard more quickly. And so
I'm a big fan of time and materials, but it also requires capacity on the government side, because you can't just be signing off on the work authorizations as they come through.
It's a change order
actually
nightmare.
Be managing it.
Yeah, it's a change order nightmare. And frankly, it's something that government hasn't been great about in the past, which ends up down the line with these projects that are way over time, massively over budget with thousands of change orders. So yeah, I love deliverable based, and it puts the risk back on the contractors.
Yes.
Right? If it's going to take you 5 hours or 500, it doesn't matter. I'm paying you the same amount of money. So do your job and do it well. Bring your A team, because you're on the hook for whatever I need at the end of the day.
Yep. And there are hard things and there are straightforward things. One thing that I was a little bit surprised by coming from the federal space is that doing a pre-solicitation is not a given in the state of California. And it's the single most valuable thing we can do is say, hey, here's what we're thinking about this project. Here's how we're thinking about approaching it. What do you think? What have we gotten wrong? Let's find that out before we let the contract.
Yeah.
Having that space to have that dialogue with the vendor community is incredibly important. And
and then listening to what they have to say, right? Because I've seen them come out and say, this is our pre-solicitation. And everyone looks at it and they're like, all right, this is baked. This is baked for so-and-so. Here's all the things they should change. And you get a little defeated after a while if you're like, I took a ton of time giving them feedback and they didn't listen to any of it. This looks the same as it did the first time they put it out. Suspicions confirmed. They wanted that one vendor, and that's what they're going to get. So yeah, I love a good pre-solicitation, and then framing around it. Like, how can we make this more successful for everybody?
Right. Well, and I think you're pointing to an important point, which is, this is a trust building exercise. How do we demonstrate that, the work that you're putting in during the solicitation phase is actually valuable and will be listened to by the state, and your expertise is not going to waste.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, I love that. All right. What are your plans for the incoming administration? Do you want to have this job in January? And I imagine the question to that is yes. And I hope, fingers crossed, the answer to that is yes. And how are you aligning now from your team to what you're working on to your initiatives to sort of make that happen?
Well, it's not up to me, but I would be very interested in continuing to do this work. I don't think the job will be done in 6 months' time.
What?
I think this is
Why? No, you've solved all our problems in 10 weeks.
I mean, I will say this. I am excited to be a part of a normal transition. My transition experience is I was there for the Obama to Trump transition. That was an exercise in waiting for a transition that never came.
Yeah.
I was there for Trump to Biden. That was an exercise in denying that there was a transition until the transition had happened. And then I was there for Biden to Trump, and that was an exercise in Doge and
oh gosh, this is going to be
madness.
A walk in the park compared to those.
I'm just excited for a transition where I hope that the incoming governor and the outgoing governor are going to work together.
They talk to each other.
That would be very exciting to me and completely novel. I'm excited to see what that looks like.
Yep. Yeah, it is. when it works right, it works right. I've been through a couple myself, and all of them were positive experiences for me. So I hope it will be for you. My offer to you, on behalf of the technology vendor community, which is large and broad, please use us. Please, we want to help. We have the same mission you do, which is to make things work better for the citizens of California. And I mean, these guys in the vendor community could probably make more money focused on a different market, focused on the
I'm sure.
enterprise market. It would move a lot faster. It's easier to sell. They don't have to go through these lengthy competitive processes. But they are civil servants at heart, whether they have been in the seat and are now on the vendor side, or they have always been on the vendor side. They do this because they love government the same way you do. And that's my offer to you.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I think the power of just everyone telling the same story and being aligned on what the challenges that we're facing,
Yep.
With something like CDT's budget and the data center services that can't cost recover, looking at how do we approach that, not just as a challenge, but as an opportunity. I think being able to tell that story from multiple perspectives is incredibly valuable, particularly to an incoming administration, to understand both what they're up against,
Yep.
but also what the opportunity is.
Yeah, I love it. Well, I'm looking forward to it. I'm excited. Thank you, Chris, so much. I like to say this is like you're coming out to the Sacramento technology community. I may be overplaying our reach and influence here, but let's just go with it. Welcome. We are super excited for your tenure, and let's have you on again.
It is always exciting to meet new people. So even if it's via podcast, I appreciate the platform.
Thanks so much. Have a good one.
Thank you, Jen.